Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I finally have my July wrap up for you. I know it is like the middle of August now, but this is the first time I've had to film this, so I'm sorry, but better late than never. So I actually read 11 books this month, which is on the higher end for me lately. I've been averaging, I would say, like 8 books a month, so I'm pretty happy with that number for this month. The first book that I read was Buckled by Pam Godwin. This is the second book in the Trails of Sin series. There's 3 books in the series. I read the first book and I talked about it in my last wrap up and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. This one I found was a little bit slower. I didn't really like it as much. There's not much I can say about this without spoiling the first book, but basically this is the brother of the guy from the first book, and there is a reporter that is in town sort of fishing for details about them, and they kind of want her to get lost, but instead this guy basically brings her to the ranch and she moves in and he's like keeping an eye on her and stuff. But I found this was very slow. There's like a whole chunk of the middle of this book where nothing really happened. Like, she wasn't telling him what she was really up to. He wasn't really doing anything. They weren't getting to know each other. They were just doing literally the grossest jobs that the ranch had to offer. Like, that was all they were doing, was like really gross ranch jobs. And I didn't really care to read that, so I didn't love this one as much as the first one. I am sort of excited for the second one. I've taken a break from this series. At this point, I still haven't picked up the third book, but I'm at the point where I'm actually like excited to pick up that book, so I'm hoping that that one will be better. It did set it up pretty decently at the end of this book. I wasn't super happy with it when I read it. I wasn't sure that I was gonna like the guy with the interest that they're sort of putting him with, but I do think I'm gonna like it, hopefully. I hope so. But I read this one, I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. It just dragged on a little bit too much for my liking. Then I read Mile High by Tomforde. I did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know that I loved it as much as everybody else has been like raving about this, but I did enjoy it. This one, I feel like everybody's heard of it, follows a flight attendant who is working for a private company, basically, that this hockey team has hired. So they are constantly on the same flights, and I was kind of leery of that when I heard people talking about this. Like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to read a book that was only going to be them interacting while they were on these flights, because I was like, how often can they really be together, and like in what sort of setting where it's like sort of a normal setting and they're not literally trapped on a plane together. So I wasn't sure I was going to like that, but she actually lives with her brother, who lives in the same building as the guy's best friend. So they actually like bump into each other quite a bit and are around each other a lot outside of the plane, which I thought like was a good balance. Like I said, I was a little bit worried about how that was going to play out. And I did like it. I did like the book. I thought it was really good. I do think that the second book I'm really going to love. I know a lot of people like that one better, and I think that I'm probably going to be one of them because I loved the guy that's in that book in this one and the girl, and I know kind of how they've set it up based on how this one ended. So I think I'm going to like that one. I'm really excited to get to it. I haven't read it yet, but I did listen to this one on audio, which is why I was able to read it, because it's a very long book. This is like 465 pages. So I did read this, did like it. I'm excited to get to the next one. Then I picked up the Mindf series by St. Abby. I feel like this was the month where I kind of finally got around to all these books that I've been seeing around that I just haven't picked up, and I just finally decided I was going to read them this month. And so this was one of them. Obviously, this is 5 books kind of all in one. If you are interested in reading these, make sure you have all of them because they do all end on a cliffhanger. So you're going to want to have the next one immediately. I did really enjoy this series. I think I gave it 4 stars overall. I thought it was really cool, and he's definitely got a lot of like twists and turns and really like interesting. But I will say that like the serial killer aspect of this really overshadows the romance. Like, I feel like this is really promoted as a romance book, but the romance was definitely like a side plot. It was something that was sort of occurring on the side of all of this other like really insane, crazy stuff that was going on. But it was like definitely a good, like fast-paced, super crazy, you never know what's going to happen next kind of story. And so I'd probably recommend it even if you don't read romance. If you're looking for something to maybe just sort of start getting into romance a little bit, this is like good for that, I would say, because there's so little of it in it. But I did enjoy it for what it was. Like I said, not the best romance, but a good story nonetheless. If you haven't heard of this, it follows a female serial killer who is killing all these men, and the FBI agent who is, well, actually he's an FBI profiler who is basically looking for her. Like, he is investigating her case, but he thinks he's looking for a man. And I wasn't really sure I was going to like that dynamic. It just sounded too obvious to me, like that she was going to be like killing people under his nose and he'd be like not realizing. But I did like the way that that was done and how it played out. I thought it was very interesting and unique. So really did like this one. Definitely would recommend it. So next in books that I've been meaning to read for a long time is the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. This is Throttled, which is the first one. This one follows Maya and Noah. And Maya is basically following around her brother, who has just entered the Formula One team that he's on, I guess. I don't know a lot about like race car driving or whatever, but he has joined the team and he has like a teammate, Noah, who she doesn't like, her brother doesn't like, and he's kind of like the playboy of racing. And she is making all these vlogs for her YouTube channel about like all the behind the scenes of the racing and all this different stuff. And that was like the one thing that kind of bothered me about this was I hate that like every person in a book that starts a YouTube channel automatically becomes like internet famous overnight, and all of a sudden they have all these fans and like brand deals and all this stuff, and like wow, they can make a career out of this in like 5 minutes. Like that kind of bothers me as someone with a YouTube channel that knows that it can be like a dead end sometimes. Like I don't know, that just always kind of bothers me. And so I didn't love that. And like in general, I enjoyed this, but I don't think that it was necessarily worth all the hype that it's been getting, because I feel like everybody talks about these like they're like the best books ever. And just like knowing the author was capable of writing terms and conditions makes this seem less good to me almost, because I'm like, okay, you could write something that great and like this is not on the level of terms and conditions. So that was kind of sad, but I'm glad I finally read it because I am trying to get through my physical TBR. So I did read this one, gave it 3 stars, I think. It was okay, definitely not a new favorite, but I did enjoy it. Then next after that, I read Collided by Lauren Asher. This is book 2 in that series. This one I also gave 3 stars. This one just felt very repetitive to the first one because the timelines overlap. So a lot of what you're seeing in this book was happening during Throttled, so you've already seen the other side of it. And I just found that really boring. This follows Sophie and Liam, and this is one of those, like, she's got a bucket list of things she wants to do and he's going to help her do them. But it's not as like crazy as it sounds. Like in the grand scheme of like bucket list books, this one was pretty tame and just like not super interesting in that department. I found I wasn't really invested in this. It was pretty generic. I don't know, I just don't get the hype with these. I wish I did because I already bought all 4 books, but so far they've just been pretty basic to me. I don't know if everyone's like excited about them because it's not super popular for there to be Formula One books, that like that's what's exciting about these, but like the romances in them are not super exciting or anything super groundbreaking. But I did read this one, gave it 3 stars, thought it was okay. Then I read Wrecked by Lauren Asher. This is book 3. This is the one that I stopped on because my library does not yet have the audio for the 4th book, so I didn't keep going after this one. Plus I kind of just needed a break. I gave this one 3 stars too. This one follows Elena and Jax. Jax is like the bad boy of racing, and Elena is hired to basically be his shadow and make sure he's not doing anything stupid. I just didn't care. For whatever reason, in this one, their banter actually annoyed me. Like, I wasn't finding it cute or like exciting. It was just really getting on my nerves, and I've never had that before with a book. Like, I thought that was really weird, but I wasn't loving it. I didn't really feel like anything about this was, you know, unique. Like, I've read books before where, you know, someone's hired to clean up someone's image and they've been done much better than this one was done. It's just like, I don't know, they're just all so generic. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's, like I said, the racing that's what makes these so popular that people are interested in. But, like, these just weren't hitting for me. Like, I wish they were because, like I said, I bought them all. But I don't know. I'll probably read the last one when my library gets the audio. But these are definitely not new favorites for me. They're just pretty standard romance books, to be honest. Then I read Keep Her Safe by QB Tyler. This is QB Tyler's newest release. I was really pumped for this because I have never given a QB Tyler full-length novel anything below a 4-star. Like, I love her books. I think they're so unique, and I know what I'm getting when I pick up one of her books, you know? But this one was just so different and not in a good way for me. This one is a bodyguard romance between an actress and her bodyguard, obviously. And there was just like no plot to be found. Like, I didn't really understand. In the first 30% of the book, you see her catch her actor boyfriend cheating on her, and they kind of agree that they're going to be like fake dating in the public image, but she is now no longer with him and is instead hooking up with this bodyguard, or like is going after him, pursuing him, whatever. And so that's kind of happening. But that was the only, like, plot line we were getting for the first 30%, was just she's fake dating this guy for the publicity and hooking up with the bodyguard or trying to get the bodyguard to hook up with her in like real life. And I don't know, it wasn't, there was nothing happening, it wasn't interesting. And then there was like this mild like introduction of a plot line of like there being a security threat to her, and like how was this bodyguard going to deal with being with her personally and also being her bodyguard and all this stuff. It was like so offhandedly mentioned, like they'd kind of mentioned like, oh, it's like a stalker, or like this guy, you know, knows too much about her and whatever. But then they would just go about like their lives for like 30-40 pages and like no mention of this stalker whatsoever. And then all of a sudden it was a problem again, and it just seemed very like there was no plot. Like it was all in that little breadcrumb that was dropped at the beginning up until like the 70% mark in the book. That was it. Like that one little breadcrumb was all you got, was there's a security threat, and that was it. And I was so bored. This book had so many smut scenes. I've never read a book like this where like they were literally fading into each other. Like there was maybe 2 pages of like, oh, we went out for dinner, like in between, and then that was it. And I was just like, it was so bored. I just wanted it to be over. I found that even like QB Tyler is usually pretty unique in the smut department. This one was not. It was very like standard by the book kind of thing. It was just so boring. Like I said, there was no plot line. The plot line that was there, it was like so glaringly obvious what was happening that it wasn't even like a suspense sort of mystery type thing. And that was really what I think was missing from this book. Is if you've read QB Tyler's books before, you know that they always have someone who can't find out about the relationship. Like it's either like a brother's best friend where the brother can't find out, or there's one where she is dating her like godfather and her parents can't find out. Like there's always someone that you're kind of, you know, by the end of the book they're going to find out and freak out. And this book didn't have that because the girl's parents have died. She's like on her own. She's old enough. She's, you know, whatever. Like there was no one that you were sort of waiting to find out about this relationship and break it apart, because there literally was no one. And I feel like that missing really like made it even more boring. I just really didn't like this one. I gave it 2 stars. Like I said, it was definitely my least favorite QB Tyler book, which I'm really sad about because I love like a One of Them is Famous book. Like that's one of my favorite tropes. And this one just did not do it well, unfortunately. Next, I ended up canceling my Audible membership this past month, and when I did that, I had some credits that I had to use. So I ended up getting almost all of Mariana Zapata's books because they're like bigger books. They're not ones that I'll typically sit down and read unless I have the audiobook. So I got the audiobook for hands down, and I was finally able to read it, and I did not like it. I'm sad I own this. Like, I don't even know. I loved Zach in The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, like truly loved him. He was such a good character. He was so great to Vanessa in that book. Like I just loved him. And this guy didn't feel like the same Zach in this book. Like it just didn't seem like him. And what really, really ruined this entire book for me is that he refers to the girl, like the love interest, as kiddo the entire time. And that just like really like weirded me out. Like, I don't know. It was like he was talking to his little sister, and then all of a sudden we were supposed to be like hoping they got together. And it was just weird. I didn't like it. I don't know how to say this like nicely, but sometimes I find Mariana Zapata has like a very weird sense of humor, or like a very weird take on things. And this book definitely had that. Like the 2 of them together almost reminded me of like children. Like they were making like fart jokes with each other and stuff. And I was like, I did not feel like I was reading an adult romance book. Like I felt like I was reading about 2 children, and didn't love that. Like I said, he called her kiddo. That just like killed every possible mood that could have been created in this for me. And like he just wasn't the Zach that I loved in the other books. So I was pretty disappointed by this. I gave it 3 stars because it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it was definitely a letdown compared to what I was hoping for. But I'm glad I at least read it. Like I said, I've been trying to make an effort to actually get through my physical CBR, so I am glad that I crossed this one off the list. Then I read the first 3 books in the Madison Kate series, which are Hate, Liar, and Fake. I did not love these, to be honest. I found they were okay. Like, I gave them all 3 stars, I think, because I was kind of just listening to them while I was working. They are very, very long, and I didn't realize that the plot line stretches over the entire series. Like, you know that Madison Kate has a stalker, and I thought that would kind of be wrapped up at some point during the series, but it literally is not wrapped up until the end of the last book, which I did read like when I'm filming this, but I didn't read it this month in July. So I am going to include that in my wrap up for next month, but you will hear my final thoughts on the series on that. But these ones, they all kind of blurred together, which is why I'm talking about them together, because they didn't have clear plot lines. It was very much just one long sort of story, kind of like reading the After series. Like, it just flowed into each other. It was very hard to distinguish what happened when. This is a reverse harem. It's definitely different than any reverse harem I've ever read, in the sense that she doesn't get with all three guys right off the bat. Like, she definitely starts sort of seeing one and then seeing another and then seeing them kind of on and off between each other. But there's like the third guy that she doesn't go near for like 2 or 3 books. And that was definitely different. Like, I've never read almost like a slow burn reverse harem, which I thought was interesting. But overall, like, I just was a little bit underwhelmed with this series. There are tons of better reverse harems out there if you're looking for that. So I was a little bit disappointed, but like, it was okay for what it was. And so that was everything that I read in July. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below, and I will see you next time.